Good afternoon everybody and welcome to the stream. I'm Robert from the El Magnifico Games channel, and today we're going to continue with our usual Wednesday poetry and riddles. So we finished last week on Splendidis Longum Valedicto Nugis by Sir Philip Sidney. Sir Philip Sidney was this gentleman. And so that's where we're going to begin this week. So, Splendidis longum valedicto nugis. Leave me, O love, which reaches but to dust, and though my mind aspire to higher things, grow rich in that which never taketh rust, whatever fades but fading pleasure brings. Pour in thy beams and humble all thy might to that sweet yoke where lasting freedoms be, which breaks the clouds and opens forth the light, that doth both shine and give us sight to see. O take fast hold, let that light be thy guide, in this small course which birth draws out to death, and think how evil becometh him to slide, who seeketh heaven, and comes of heavenly breath. Then farewell, world, thy uttermost I see, eternal love, maintain thy life in me. So, let's keep going then. So we move on to Fulk Greville Lord Brooke. So I wonder who this individual was. Presumably first Baron Brooke. Uh, 1554 to the 30th of December 1628. So that's certainly the right period, so we almost certainly have the right person. Known before as Sir Fulk Greville, was an Elizabethan poet, dramatist and statesman who sat in the House of Commons at various times between 1581 and 1621, when he was raised to the peerage. Notable, of course, that all this happened before the English Civil War. So Parliament obviously existed then, but it didn't have quite as senior a position as it does today. Though I've no doubt that was very prestigious even back then. Greville was a capable administrator who served the English crown under Elizabeth I and James I as successively Treasurer of the Navy, Chancellor of the Exchequer and Commissioner of the Treasury, and who for his services was in 1621 made Baron Brooke peer of the realm. Greville was granted Warwick Castle in 1604, making numerous improvements. Greville is best known today as the biographer of Sir Philip Sidney, who was the poet we were reading from just moments ago, and for his sober poetry, which presents dark, thoughtful and distinctly Calvinist views on art, literature, beauty and other philosophical matters. Notable that Wikipedia has made a point of emphasising citation needed for Calvinist. Calvinism is a major branch of Protestantism that follows the theological tradition and forms of Christian practice set down by John Calvin and other Reformation-era theologians. It emphasises the sovereignty of God and the authority of the Bible. So, Fulk Greville, born the 3rd of October 1554 at Beauchamp Court, near Alchester, Warwickshire, was the only son of Sir Fulk Greville and Anne Neville, the daughter of Ralph Neville, 4th Earl of Westmoreland. He was the grandson of Sir Fulk Greville and Elizabeth Willoughby, buried 15th of November 1562, eldest daughter of Robert Willoughby, 2nd Baron Willoughby de Brooke. The only other child of the marriage was a daughter, Margaret Greville, who married Sir Richard Verney. He was sent in 1564, on the same day as his lifelong friend Philip Sidney, to Shrewsbury School. He then went up to Jesus College, Cambridge, in 1568. Sir Henry Sidney, Philip's father and president of the Council of Wales and the Marches, gave Greville in 1576 a post connected with the court of the Welsh Marches, but Greville resigned it in 1577 to go to attend the court of Queen Elizabeth I along with Philip Sidney. There, Greville became a great favourite with the Queen, who valued his sober character and administrative skills. In 1581 he was elected in a by-election as Member of Parliament for Southampton. Queen Elizabeth made him Secretary to the Principality of Wales in 1583. However, he was put out of favour more than once for leaving the country against her wishes. In 1581, at a Whitehall tournament in honour of French Ambassador Greville, Philip Sidney, Philip Howard Earl of Arundel, and Frederick Lord Windsor staged an entertainment as the 4 foster children of Desire. The ambassadors were working on plans for Elizabeth's marriage to Francis, Duke of Anjou. The foster children laid siege to the Fortress of Perfect Beauty. After 2 days of challenges, the children admitted defeat. The entertainment was understood to convey the idea that Elizabeth was unattainable, devised by the opposition to the French marriage. Greville, Philip Sidney, and Sir Edward Dyer were members of the Areopagus the literary clique which, under the leadership of Gabriel Harvey, supported the introduction of classical metre into English verse. Okay. So this is significant then. Significant to our poetry reading. Sidney and Greville arranged to sail with Sir Francis Drake in 1585 in his expedition against the Spanish West Indies. But Elizabeth forbade Drake to take them with him, and also refused Greville's request to be allowed to join Robert Dudley's army in the Netherlands. Philip Sidney, who took part in the campaign, was killed on the 17th of October 1586. Greville memorialised his beloved friend in a dedication to Sir Philip Sidney. Greville participated in the Battle of Caltras in 1587. About 1591, Greville served further for a short time in Normandy under King Henry III of Navarre in the French Wars of Religion. This was his last expedition of war. Last experience of war. Greville represented Warwickshire in Parliament in 1592 to 1593, 1597, 1601 and 1621. In 1598 he was made Treasurer of the Navy, and he retained the office through the early years of the reign of James I. Greville was granted Warwick Castle, situated on the bend of the River Avon in Warwickshire by James I in 1604. The castle was in a dilapidated condition when he took possession of it, and he spent £20,000 to restore it, which would have been a lot of money back then. In 1614 he became Chancellor and Under-Treasurer of the Exchequer, and throughout the reign he was a valued supporter of James I, although in 1615 he advocated the summoning of Parliament. In 1618 he became Commissioner of the Treasury, and in 1621 he was raised to the peerage with the title of Baron Brooke, a title which had belonged to the family of his paternal grandmother. Interesting. So why was that title available? Did that line run out of heirs? Well, if it ran out of heirs, presumably they would have had to get... They wouldn't have had to have got any support to give the title to him. From the monarch, I mean. It would have been automatic, it wouldn't have been gifted. So perhaps something happened that meant that the title was taken away, and then it was ultimately gifted to him. I wonder. Anyway, death and legacy. In 1628, Greville was stabbed at his house in Holborn, London by Ralph Hayward, a servant who believed that he had been cheated by being left out of his master's will. Oh my goodness. What a sordid affair. Hayward then turned the knife on himself. Greville's physicians treated his wounds by filling them with pig fat. Okay. Interesting. I suppose if it was molten, then that would potentially prevent infection, but if it wasn't, but doing harm in the process, if it wasn't molten, that would just cause an infection, surely. Rather than disinfecting them, the pig fat turned rancid and infected the wounds, and he died in agony 4 weeks after the attack. Yes. That's both unfortunate, but not that surprising. His body was brought back to Warwick, and he was buried in the Collegiate Church of St. Mary, Warwick, and on his tomb was inscribed the epitaph he had composed. Fulk Greville, servant to Queen Elizabeth, counsellor to King James, and friend to Sir Philip Sidney. Trophium Persati, or Catty. I have no idea how this is pronounced. I would also note that they say unreliable source here on Wikipedia. Greville has numerous streets named after him in the Hatton Garden area of Holborn, London. See Hatton Garden street names etymologies. A line from Chorus Sacerdotum from Mustapha is quoted by Christopher Hitchens in his book Letters to a Young Contrarian. In 2018, the first ever festival dedicated to Greville was launched in his hometown, Alchester, Warwickshire. Goodness, so he is reasonably well remembered then. Especially given that today... Well, I wonder what they were actually celebrating about him. I was about to say, especially since today poetry isn't taken all that seriously and isn't all that widespread, it seems. It's surprising that in 2018 they would have still cared enough. You know, you could understand if it was 40 years earlier to an extent. But it doesn't actually say that that's what they were celebrating about him. Could be that they just thought he was a wonderful fellow, all things considered. Anyway, I think that's enough about him. How many of these are there even? Yeah, only one poem by the looks of it. But it's still worth looking at these biographical summaries, simply because sometimes it can offer insight into the nature of the poetry we read. This time I suspect otherwise, but it wouldn't be the first time. Anyway, where were we? Myra. I, with those colours Myra dressed her head, I that wear posies of her own hand making, I that mine own name in the chimneys read, by Myra finely wrought ere I was waking. Must I look on, in hope time coming may, with change bring back my turn again to play? I that on Sunday at the church stile found a garland sweet with true love knots in flowers, which I to wear about mine arms was bound, that each of us might know that all was ours. Must I lead now an idle life in wishes, and follow Cupid for his loaves and fishes? I that did wear the ring her mother left, I for whose love she gloried to be blamed, I with whose blamed, I with whose eyes her eyes committed theft, I who did make her blush when I was named. Must I lose ring, flowers, blush, theft, and go naked, watching with sighs till dead love be awaked? Was it for this that I might Myra see, washing the water with her beauties white? Yet would she never write her love to me. Things wit of change when thoughts are in delight. Mad girls may safely love as they may leave. No man can print a kiss. Lines may deceive. I apologise, I made a few too many mistakes when reading that out. Yeah, I think this is going to require a bit of analysis. So what's going on with the scansion on the first line? Oh, there's a trochaic substitution on the first foot. That makes sense. So I would say this is iambic pentameter by the looks of it. Yeah, it looks that way. As for rhyme structure, what do we have? A, B, A, B, C, C. I've got a feeling that may be a recognised structure. But I don't remember what it's called if it is. So, give me a moment, and I'll see if I can find it. One might think I'd have these memorised by now. Sadly not. No, I can't find it. But it's a fairly obvious structure. I'd be surprised if this doesn't have a name, I just don't know what that is. All iambic pentameter with an ABABCC rhyming scheme. As for meaning, so, eye with whose colours Myra dressed her head. So does that mean she wore garments on her head that had matching colours to the colours associated with the speaker in this poem? I that wear poses of her own hand making. That's fairly obvious. I that mine own name in the chimneys read, but Myra finely wrought ere I was waking. What does that mean? I that mine own name in the chimneys read, by Myra finely wrought ere I was waking. What do they mean by wrought ere? An earlier time, before, sooner than. Or it could also be an obsolete form of ear. Oh, I wonder if it's pronounced ear, not air. It probably is, as in here. H-E-R-E. Ah, what does this say? Yeah, it is ear. Wrought. Doesn't that mean to make something? Having been worked or prepared somehow. Is that fence made out of wrought iron? Yes. Wrought air. Sorry, wrought ear. By Myra finely wrought it, I was waking. I that mine own name in the chimneys read, by Myra finely wrought ere I was waking. I can't be sure. I think that's saying I can read my name in the chimney because Myra worked it there before I awoke. That might be wrong. If you have a contrary theory, please leave a comment in chat and we can discuss it. But I think that's what it's saying. Must I look on in hope time coming may with change bring back my turn again to play? So that sounds like this is an indicator that there may have been a falling out and that he feels somewhat, what's the word, somewhat powerless to do anything, and he's just waiting to see if he'll have another chance. That's my interpretation of that, at least having read so far. I that on Sunday at the church stile found. What's a stile in a church again? Is that one of the seats? A set of one or more steps surmounting a fence or wall, or a narrow gate or a contrived passage through a fence or wall, which in either case allow people but not livestock to pass. That makes sense. Or it could be a vertical component of a frame or panels, such as that of a door, window or ladder. Okay, so presumably the church is surrounded by a wall and the stile is how people get over to get into the church. So, I that on Sunday at the church stile found a garland sweet with true love knots in flowers. True love knots? I wonder if this was a practice which has since died out. Oh, maybe not. Or at least maybe it's still fairly well known about. A bracelet which partners both wear to show their love. Oh. Which I to wear about mine arm was bound, that each of us might know that all was ours. Okay, so this is sounding less like there was a falling out, more like this was a... It's not quite secret, but surreptitious way of expressing their love for each other. But then again, it says that he was compelled to do it. Which I to wear about mine arms was bound, that each of us might know... Oh, I suppose it doesn't follow that he felt compelled to do it. It felt bound to do it. So it's not clear if he's bound by obligation or if it does mean he felt compelled to do it. He felt that he had to do it out of some emotional need. Because that would spin a very different light on the poem. Must I lead now an idle life in wishes and follow Cupid for his loaves and fishes? Okay. Okay. I think this is falling into place in my head now. I think this is about two lovers where the male feels things are progressing too slowly. He's not sure if he's being led on or not. I that did wear the ring her mother left, I for whose love she gloried to be blamed, I with whose eyes her eyes committed theft, I who did make her blush when I was named. I wonder what they mean by made her blush when I was named. Oh, I suppose when his name is said. Must I lose ring, flowers, blush, theft, and go naked, watching with sighs till dead love be awaked? So again, this sounds like... Again, this is casting doubt on the relationship. Was it for this that I might Myra see, washing the water with her beauty's white? Oh. Okay, this is a nice turn of phrase, if I'm understanding correctly. Not washing with water, she is washing the water. She is so pure that the water itself is being washed by her presence. And her beauty's white, well, white is the colour of innocence. So again, this is... And it's being tied to the idea of beauty. Beauty and innocence bound up as one feminine ideal. So yeah, that's quite a clever line, I think. Yet would she never write her love to me? Think wits of change when thoughts are in delight. Well, the first line, that makes complete and utter sense. Yet would she never write her love to me? But then the second one, thinks wit of change when thoughts are in delight. What do they mean by that? Thinks wit of change. Thinks it's clever? Perhaps? Sanity, the senses, the ability to think quickly, mental cleverness, especially under short time constraints, intelligence, common sense, humour, especially when clever or quick, a person who tells funny anecdotes or jokes, someone witty. No, be aware of. I can't be 100% sure, But I think what this is saying is she thinks it's clever to change. That is, either change herself or change the relationship. When the thought of it delights her. So in other words, I think this is accusing her of being fickle. Mad girls may safely love as they may leave. No man can print a kiss, lines may deceive. Okay, mad girls may safely love as they may leave. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. I think that's saying that women that are less saintly love more easily, but also leave more easily. No man can print a kiss. Lines may deceive. And so then we're back to the concerns about being led on. So I think he's saying that a kiss would be proof of the truth of the relationship, but you can't print. Well, he says here a kiss, but, you know, proof of love, because lines may deceive. No matter how beautiful the poetry, or I suppose it needn't be poetry, the romantic writing, it could still be a deception. So I could be wrong, but I think the meaning of this poem is he's lamenting the fact that his lover is so lukewarm with him. Neither fully committing or fully leaving him, just in this intermediate state that he finds abominable. And he's just not sure whether he's being led on or if it's real. I could be wrong about the meaning, but that's what I think it's saying. Again, as always, if you have a contrary theory, please leave a comment and we can discuss it. But yet again, once I actually take the time to look at it and think about it, I find I appreciate it much, much more. That's been a theme as we've been making our way through the Oxford Book of English Verse. Anyway, on to Thomas Lodge, Rosalind's Madrigal. So, who was Thomas Lodge? Uh, 1558 to September 1625. Thomas Lodge was an English writer and medical practitioner whose life spanned the Elizabethan and Jacobean periods. As usual, we'll have a quick look through his biography and then we'll get on with the poetry. Thomas Lodge was born about 1558 in West Ham, the second son of Sir Thomas Lodge, Lord Mayor of London, by his third wife Anne, daughter of Henry Luddington, a London grocer. Oh, would that not have made her working class? That sounds quite scandalous, unless they weren't particularly fussy about that back then. He was educated at Merchant Taylor's School and Trinity College, Oxford, taking his BA in 1577 and MA in 1581. In 1578 he entered Lincoln's Inn, where, at the other Inns of Court, a love of letters and a crop of debts were common. Interesting. What do they mean by the Inns of Court? Is this a legal inn? The Inns of Court in London are the professional associations for barristers in England and Wales. Yes, indeed. I thought he was a medical practitioner, not a lawyer. It's interesting that crops of debts were apparently considered common among lawyers of the time. Lodge, disregarding the wishes of his family, took up literature. When the penitent Stephen Gosson had, in 1579, published his School of Abuse, Lodge responded with defence of poetry, music and stage plays, 1579 or 1580, which shows a certain restraint, though both forceful and learned. The pamphlet was banned, but appears to have been circulated privately. It was answered by Gonson in his plays Confuted in 5 actions, and Lodge retorted with his Alarum against Usurers, a tract for the times, which may have resulted from personal experience. In the same year he produced the first tale written by him on his own account in prose and verse, the delectable history of Forbonius and Pressuria, both published and reprinted with the Alarum. So what do they mean by he produced the first tale written by him on his own account in prose and verse? I suppose the stuff he'd written before then weren't tales, so this is fiction and the stuff before was non-fiction? From 1587 onwards he seems to have made a series of attempts at playwriting, though most of these attributed to him are mainly conjectural. He probably never became an actor, and John Payne Collier's conclusion to that effect rested on the 2 assumptions that the Lodge of Philip Henslow manuscript was a player and that his name was Thomas, neither of which is supported by the text. Having been to sea with Captain Clark in his expedition to Terceira, wait, what would that be? Terceira and the Canaries. Terceira, possibly, I'm not sure. Lodge in 1591 made a voyage with Thomas Cavendish to Brazil and the Straits of Magellan, returning home by 1593. During the Canaries expedition, circa 1586, to beguile the tedium of his voyage, he composed his prose tale of Rosalind, Euphues, Golden Legacy. Rosalind, Euphues' Golden Legacy, which, printed in 1590, afterwards furnished the story of Shakespeare's As You Like It. The novel, which its turn owes some, though no very considerable, debt to the medieval tale of Gamlin, unwarrantably appended to the fragmentary Cook tales in certain manuscripts of Geoffrey Chaucer's works, is written in the euphuistic manner. We've come across that before, haven't we? It takes its name from a prose romance by John Lilly. I think we read some of John Lilly's work before. Let me check. I'm pretty sure we did. Yes, we did. Cards and Kisses, of course. I enjoyed that one. Spring's Welcome. That was it. Just those 2, it would seem. Where was I? The novel, which in its turn owes some, though no very considerable, debt to the medieval tale of Gamlin, is written in the euphuistic manner, but decidedly attractive both by its plot and by the situations arising from it. It has been frequently reprinted. Before starting on his second expedition, he had published a historical romance, The History of Robert, 2nd Duke of Normandy, surnamed Robert the Devil, and he left behind him for publication Katharos Diogenes in his Singularity, a discourse on the immorality of Athens, London. I assume... Oh wait, is Athens an area in London? No. So I would assume where it says Athens and then in brackets London, it means Athens as a don't mean metaphor, do I? I can't think of the proper word. Using Athens as a stand-in for London. I suppose that's sort of a metaphor. But talking about London, but using Athens as the name simply so it's not so directly offensive. Both appeared in 1591. Another romance in the manner of Lily, Euphew's Shadow, the Battle of the Senses, appeared while Lodge was still on his travels. Is that Batal or Batale? I don't know. I think Batal's probably more likely, but I really don't know. In the latter part of his life, possibly about 1596, when he published his Wit, Misery and the World's Madness, which is dated from Low Leighton in Essex, and the religious tract Prosopopeia, if, as it seems probable, it was his, in which he repents him of his lewd lines of other days. He became a Catholic and engaged in the practice of medicine, for which Wood says he qualified himself by a degree at Avignon in 1600. 2 years afterwards he received the degree of MD from Oxford University. Early in 1606 he seemed to have left England to escape the persecution then directed against the Catholics, and a letter from him dated 1610 thanks the English ambassador in Paris for enabling him to return in safety. He was abroad on urgent private affairs of one kind and another in 1616. From this time to his death, nothing further concerning him remains to be noted. Lodge, while practising medicine in London, lived first in Warwick Lane, afterward in Lambert Hill, and finally in Old Fish Street in the parish of St. Mary Magdalene. He died in Old Fish Street in 1625, apparently in the Roman Catholic Communion. He may have been buried in St. Mary Magdalene, Old Fish Street, demolished in 1893, but documentary evidence is lacking. Goodness. So a reasonably eventful life. And on to the poem. Rosalind's Madrigal. Love in my bosom like a bee does suck his sweet. Now with his wings he plays with me, now with his feet. Within mine eyes he makes his nest, his bed amidst my tender breast. My kisses are his daily feast, and yet he robs me of my rest. Ah, wanton will ye? And if I sleep, then percheth he with pretty flight, and makes his pillow of my knee, the love-long night. Strike I my lute, he tunes the string, he plays if so I sing. He lends me every lovely thing, yet cruel he my heart doth sting. Whist, wanton, still ye. Else I with roses every day will whip you hence, and bind you when you long to play for your offence. I'll shut mine eyes to keep you in, I'll make you fast it for your sin. I'll count your power not worth a pin. Alas, what hereby shall I win, if he gainsay me? What if I beat the wanton boy with many a rod? He will repay me with annoy, because a god. Then sit thou safely on my knee, then let thy bower my bosom be. Look in mine eyes, I like of thee, O Cupid, so thou pity me, spare not but play thee. Goodness. This one's also going to take a bit of analysis. Okay. Let's start by looking at the structure. Love in my bosom like a bee. That's 8 syllables, is it not? Doth suck his sweet. 4. Now with his wings he plays with me. 8. Now with his feet. 4. Do we see that in the subsequent stanzas? And if I sleep, then percheth he with pretty flight, and makes his pillow of my knee the livelong night. Yes, and here, else I with roses every day will whip ye hence, and bind you when you long to play for your offence. Yep. What if I beat the wanton boy with many a rod? Nearly. What if I beat the wanton boy 8 with many a rod? That's 5. He will repay me with annoy. 8. Because a god. 4. Then the final 5 lines. Within mine eyes he makes his nest. That's 8. His bed amidst my tender breast. That's also 8. He kisses, my kisses are his daily feast. 8. And yet he robs me of my rest. 8. Ah, wanton will ye. 5. I'll shut mine eyes to keep you in. 8. I'll make you fast it for your sin. 8. I'll count your power, not worth a pin. That's 9, isn't it? I'll count your power, not worth a pin. I wonder what that mark is. Has someone deliberately marked the book here, or is that accidental? Alas, what hereby shall I win, if he gainsay me? Alas, what hereby shall I win? 8. If he gainsay me. 5. Yeah. It looks very much as if it's roughly 8 4 8 4 8 8 8 8 5 on average. Though there's at least one instance of a deviation we've already discovered. But the point is, we're seeing something that we've spotted in several poems before now, repeated again. And that is this idea that rather than using a well-known form, I assume this isn't a well-known form, it seems remarkably irregular. Rather than using a well-known form of poetry, you create your own form for your stanzas to follow, but then you make sure you repeat it. I can't remember us coming across a poem of a single stanza that had an irregular structure. It's almost as if It's almost as if the repetition's mandatory. If you're not going to follow a recognised structure, then you have to repeat and therefore reinforce the structure you've invented. Right, now let's look at rhyming structure. A, B, A, B, C, 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 A. A, B, A, B, C, 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 A. A, B, A, B, C, 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 D, because day and me don't rhyme. A, B, A, B, C, 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 D. Oh no, wait, that's not D, that's C. Was that the same above here? No, it's not. So it's A, B, A, B, C, 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 C. Interesting. So you still see a little bit of variation even of the structure he's invented. But reasonably elegantly done, I think. So, as for the meaning, love in my bosom like a bee. Oh, I should have said, I'm fairly certain this is being written from a female perspective, even though the author is male. Love in my bosom like a bee doth suck his sweet. Well, bees obviously collect pollen from plants, and they will drink nectar. And it's the nectar that is probably where the suck his sweet is coming from. See what I'm trying to get clear in my mind how this analogy works. Love in my bosom like a bee. What does that mean? Like, we all know what a bee is, and love in my bosom makes sense, you know, the pounding of the heart. Is this supposed to be an expression like having butterflies in your stomach? But then it says the stuck is sweet. Unless that's supposed to be an erotic reference. I'm not sure what it's driving at. Now with his wings he plays with me, now with his feet. Okay, this is then going more back to the butterflies in your stomach interpretation. Or it's looking more like that. Within mine eyes he makes his nest, his bed amidst my tender breast. My kisses are his daily feast, and yet he robs me of my rest. Ah, wanton will ye. Okay, yeah, this is making sense. Following this analogy along, it's essentially someone complaining, well, they seem to be enjoying the sensation of being in love, but they also seem to be complaining about it. Because it's not all good. Right, wanton. Undisciplined, unrolling, not able to be controlled. Wanton will ye. Lewd, immoral, etc. Capricious, reckless of morality, extravagant, unrestrained, yeah. What do I mean by wanton will ye? Yeah, do they mean you? You, the singular person being addressed? How's it pronounced? I think that is ye. Ye was originally used only for the nominative case as the subject, and only for the second person plural. Later ye was used as a subject or an object, either singular or plural, which is the way that you is used today. In modern Hiberno-English usage, ye is used as a subject or an object in the plural, to contrast with you. I have no idea what Hiberno-English is. Oh! Derived terms. Do ya? Hear ya? Yerd? Yeel? I assume that's not supposed to be do ye, hear ye. It could be actually hear ye, hear ye. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeed. Yeah, so it probably is do ya. Sorry, do ye. But I still don't understand this. Wanton will ye. Supposing it was a different verb, supposing it said run. Run will ye. It would be urging someone to do the verb. But that would be urging them to be unruly. Which seems... Which seems dubious. Anyway, and if I sleep, then percheth he with pretty flight, and makes his pillow of my knee the livelong night. Strike I my lute, he tunes a string, he music plays if so I sing. He lends me every lovely thing, yet cruel he may my heart doth sting. Whist wanton still ye. What's whist? Other than a card game. Silence, quiet, hush. To hush, shush. To still, to become silent. Could they be using wanton as a noun, as in the unruly one? Silence, unruly one, still ye. Maybe, but then what would still ye be? It's still you? And then what would our wanton will ye mean? Wanton. Uneducated, unrestrained, licentious, sportive, playful. From one, not unmiss. Etawan. Educated. Literally towed. Led, drawn. So it could be an adjective or a noun, a pampered or coddled person, an overly playful person, a trifler, a self-indulgent person fond of excess, a lewd or immoral person, especially a prostitute. Or as a verb, to rove and ramble without restraint, rule or limit, to revel, to play loosely, to frolic, to waste or squander, especially in pleasure, most often with away. The young man wantoned away his inheritance. To act wantonly, to be lewd or lascivious. How wanton will ye? Whist wanton still ye. Yeah, I can't pass that, unfortunately. Else I with roses every day will whip you hence, and bind you when you long to play for your offence. I'll shut mine eyes to keep you in, I'll make you fast it for your sin. I'll count your power not worth a pin. Alas, what hereby shall I win, if he gainsay me? Gainsay. So again, this is continuing with the analogy of having a bee inside you and being in love, or the metaphor, to say something in contradiction to. To say against. Say in opposition to. Alas, what hereby shall I win if he gainsay me? Yep, not fully following that either, unless it just means, what's the point if he opposes me? This bee that lives inside me. So that could be what, essentially saying, What will I win if it doesn't work? What if doing all these things to torture this bee, which is a symbol of my love, if they don't acquiesce? What if I beat the wanton boy with many a rod? Okay, this is more evidence that this is obviously being used as a adjective here, but I think that's more evidence that it was a noun up here, not a verb. He will repay me with annoy because of God. Oh, is this a reference to Cupid? It says wanton boy, so it's gone from a bee to a boy. So perhaps the suggestion here is even if I try to oppress this creature, I'll only be repaid with annoyance because this creature is a god. And so the point being, love can't be dominated so easily. I think that's what it's saying. Then sit thou safely on my knee. Then let thy bower my bosom be. Look in mine eyes, I like of thee. Look in my eyes, I like of thee. How can you like of something? I can't quite tell if that means I like thee, or if it means is similar to. Look in mine eyes, I like of thee. O Cupid, so thou pity me, spare not but play thee. So directly addressing Cupid, which supports the notion that that's the god that's being referred to. So thou pity me. So is that saying because you pity me, don't spare me but play? Because the grievances that the speaker has spoken of seem to be due to the nature of love itself. So if Cupid pitied them for that fact, why would they then play, which presumably means to continue doing what they've been doing? Unless they pity them for other reasons, such as a lack of love in their life. I confess I don't fully follow it, unfortunately. Parts of it make sense and parts don't. If you have any theories of your own, please leave a comment. So we'll move on to Phyllis the First. My Phyllis hath the morning sun, at first to look upon her, and Phyllis hath morn waking birds, arising still to honour. My Phyllis hath primed feathered flowers, that smile when she treads on them, and Phyllis hath a gallant flock, that leap since she doth own them. But Phyllis hath too hard a heart, alas that she should have it, it yields no mercy to desert, nor grace to those that crave it. Well, the obvious meaning here being that She has many positive aspects, but she isn't a loving person. See, is obvious, but I feel like there's more to be read into the first few verses, which I just don't understand. No. And I don't fancy my chances at deciphering it either. Like, what's the significance of a prime feathered flower? And what does he mean when he refers to her rising, still honouring, morn-waking birds? If that's what it's saying. I think there's just a lot going on there which I don't have the appropriate cultural context to decipher. So we'll move on to Phyllis 2. Love guards the roses of thy lips, and flies about them like a bee. If I approach, he forward skips, as if I kiss, he stingeth me. Love in thine eyes doth build his bower, and sleeps within their pretty shine. And if I look, the boy will lower, and from their orbs shoot shafts divine. Love works thy heart within his fire, and in mine tears doth firm the same. And if I tempt it, will retire, and of my plaint doth make a game. Love, let me cull her choicest flowers, and pity me, and calm her eye. Make soft her heart, dissolve her lovers. Dissolve her lowers. Then will I praise thy deity. But if thou do not love, I truly serve her, in spite of thee, and by firm faith deserve her. This one also seems reasonably reasonably opaque. Love guards the roses of thy lips, and flies about them like a bee. So here's a poet that is clearly has certain metaphors that he likes to reuse. I don't know if he's taken it from elsewhere, but since we haven't, I don't think we've seen a bee as a metaphor for love before, I have to assume that this is something unique to this author. Like how we had an author before, it might have been Sir Philip Sidney, or I might be misremembering, one of them that always wrote about Stella, which means star, and that became the name for the female objects of love in a lot of their poetry. If I approach, he forward skips, and if I kiss, he stingeth me. I mean, that seems fairly obvious, that if he tries to kiss his love, then he's hurt. Exactly why isn't made clear. But perhaps she doesn't like his advances? Or perhaps there's some other reason. Love in thine eyes doth build his bower, and sleep within their pretty shine. And if I took, the boy will lower, and from their orbs shoot shafts divine. I think orbs is probably a reference to eyes. Idea of divine light shooting at the eyes of Cupid, I think. Through his lover's eyes. Because I think Cupid is being described as this bee, which is on the inside. Love works thy heart within his fire, and in my tears does firm the same. Love works thy heart within his fire, so she is in love, and in my tears doth firm the same. Why is he crying? It doesn't sound like these are tears of happiness. Is she just not interested in him? Does she have another lover? And if I tempt, it will retire. and of my plaints doth make a game. And if I tempt, it will retire. So love will retire. So what does it might be if I tempt? Because I'd think of tempt as being daring someone to do something, or being tempted oneself. To provoke someone to do wrong, especially by promising a reward, to entice, to attract, to allure, to provoke something to court. So is it suggesting that when he behaves in a loving manner towards his lover, he loses interest in her, and it's only when he's not being loving that he falls in love again? Is that what it's suggesting? And of my plaints doth make a gain. So plaints would be complaints, I believe. So the love makes a game out of all my complaints. Love, let me cull her choicest flowers. Cull would mean kill or destroy. And pity me and calm her eye. So have pity on me and make her be calm, even though I've just destroyed her favourite flowers, I think. Make soft her heart, dissolve her lowers. That second clause I find dubious. There's a very obvious lewd interpretation of that, but it's so lewd I'm dubious that that's what they meant. I wonder if I'm missing something. Then will I praise thy deity. But if thou do not love, I'll truly serve her, in spite of thee, and by firm faith deserve her. This actually reinforces what I thought was a bizarre interpretation at first. So I think it's saying, if I act lovingly towards her, I lose interest. If I act cruelly towards her, I fall in love. So please let her love me back if I act cruelly towards her, but if you don't, then I will serve her truly, properly, and even if you retire, that is, love leaves, I'll still do right by her, and in fact will deserve her more as a result. I mean, that's what it seems to be saying. Well, I can say for one thing, it's intriguing. I am finding it hard to identify with, though. Why would you feel most attached to a person when you're being deliberately cruel to them? I mean, I'm not going as far as saying that can't possibly be right, but I am having difficulty with this idea. We have an AB rhyming scheme, though it ends with a AA. I think it's mostly iambic tetrameter. That's probably all I can say about this poem. It's an interesting one at the least. I think I'll give it one more reading before we move on. Phyllis 2. Love guards the roses of thy lips and flies about them like a bee. If I approach he skips. Oh dear. Let me try again. Phyllis 2. Love guards the roses of thy lips and flies about them like a bee. If I approach he forward skips, and if I kiss he stingeth me. Love in thine eyes does build his bower, and sleeps within their pretty shine. And if I look the boy will lower, and from their orbs shoots shafts divine. Love works thy heart within his fire, and in my eyes doth firm the same. And if I tempt it, it will retire, and of my plaints doth make a game. Love let me cull her choicest flowers, and pity me, and calm her eye, make soft her heart, dissolve her lowers, then will I praise thy deity. But if thou do not, love, I'll truly serve her, in spite of thee, and by firm faith deserve her. It does seem to be what it's saying, as far as I can tell. So now we move on to Rosalind. Like to the clear in highest sphere, where all imperial glory shines, of selfsame colour is his hair, whether unfolded or entwines. Hey ho, fair Rosalind, her eyes are sapphires set in snow, resembling heaven by every wink, the gods do fear, ween as they glow. And when I do tremble when I think, hey ho, would she... Sorry. Let me go back a bit. Her eyes are sapphire set in snow, resembling heaven by her every wink. The gods do fear when as they glow, and I do tremble when I think, hey ho, would she were mine. Her cheeks are like the blushing cloud that beautifies Aurora's face. That beautifies Aurora's face, or like the silver crimson shroud that Phobos smiling looks doth grace. Hey ho, fair Rosalind, her lips are like two budded roses, whom ranks of lilies neighbour nigh. Within those bounds she balm encloses, apt to entice a deity. Hey ho, would she were mine. Her neck like to a stately tower, where love himself imprisoned lies, to watch for glances every hour from her divine and sacred eyes. Hey ho, fair Rosalind, her paps are centres of delight, her breasts are orbs of heavenly frame, where nature moulds the dew of light, to feed perfection with the same. Hey ho, would she were mine. With orient pearl, with ruby red, with marble white, with sapphire blue, her body every way is fed, yet soft to touch and sweet in view. Hey ho, fair Rosalind. Nature herself her shape admires, the gods are wounded in her sight, and love forsakes its heavenly fires, and at her eyes his brand doth light. Hey ho, would she were mine. Then muse not, nymphs, though I bemoan the absence of fair Rosalind, since for a fair there's a fairer none, nor for her virtue so divine. Hey ho, fair Rosalind, hey ho, my heart, would God that she were mine. I wonder if there's any more significance to hey ho than is immediately obvious. Oh well. A usually light-hearted dismissal or acceptance of a troublesome situation. See, that's what I would have thought, but that doesn't quite figure, does it? check my physical dictionary. Nothing there. And nothing there, so nothing for either spelling. I don't know. I wonder if that expression has changed its connotations between then and now. What do we have in terms of structure? Looks like it's supposed to be ABAB, even though sphere and hair doesn't rhyme. I'm saying that because we have cloud and shroud here and tower and hour there. I find it dubious that they ever would have rhymed though. It wouldn't be sphere and hair, would it? And it wouldn't be hair and sphere. Then again, I would say that an ABAB rhyming scheme is quite common and an ABCB rhyming scheme is quite common. And so if you were going to create a regular structure but you had to deviate from it slightly, you'd rather deviate on the first rhyme rather than the second rhyme. Then what else do we have? Rosalind. That gets repeated a lot. I don't think that... No, that doesn't rhyme with anything else on the line, other than maybe mine. Rosaline, mine. Though you have to wrench it. Then we have snow and glow, wink and think. Oh, I see what they're trying to do here. At least I think I do. I think they're trying to do an AB, ABC, DE, DEC. Again, it's a structure that I've not... it's a structure I think has been invented for this particular poem. I'm not aware of it being a structure otherwise. But what they've done is they've created a structure with a certain degree of regularity. So it almost could have been a structure, and then they just repeat it over and over, which gives it... what would be the way... how would you put this? Which gives it more force than it would otherwise have. Her cheeks are like the blushing cloud that beautifies Aurora's face, or like the silver crimson shroud that Phobos, smiling, looks doth grace. So that's all iambic tetrameter. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. I thought it was pronounced Rosalind, but Rosaline rhymes with mine, so it's probably supposed to be Rosaline. I wonder if Wiktionary actually has that name and a pronunciation. It has the name but no pronunciation. A female given name from Latin. I'm gonna go with Rosaline now. What was I thinking? So it seems to be mostly in iambic tetrameter with the odd line of iambic trimeter. It's good, technically speaking. As for the meaning, I couldn't really see much meaning in it. Oh, of course, the final one was different, wasn't it? The final stanza. Then muse not, nymphs, though I bemoan. That's tetrameter. The absence of fair Rosaline. The absence of fair Rosaline, that's tetrameter. Since for a fair, there's fairer none. Not for her virtues so divine. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. So far, bemoan, none don't. Rosaline divine. Yes, so that's an A, B, C, B rhyming scheme. So far that stanza actually is following the formula. Hey ho, my heart, would God that she were mine. Hey ho, my heart, would God that she were mine. I thought so. He's ended it on a iambic pentameter, which is interesting because in a lot of ways that mirrors the use of an alexandrine. An alexandrine is a hexameter that used to conclude a lot of iambic pentameter poetry, if I recall correctly. I'd have to check the exact structure it was associated with, if any. But there was this idea that you would have a... I am remembering correctly, aren't I? It is a hexameter. I think, not a 14er. But anyway, the point I'm making is that the entire poem is written in fewer feet than some of the older poetry that they would have been drawing from at this point. But he's simulated a similar structure by making the final verse longer than those that precede it. Yes, it's a hexameter. Anyway, so I think I'll give that one more read before we move on. Rosaline. Like to the clear and highest... Already made a mistake. Rosaline. Like to the clear in highest sphere, where all imperial glory shines, of selfsame colour is her hair, whether unfolded or entwines. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. Her eyes are sapphire set in snow, resembling heaven by every wink. The gods do fear when as they glow, and I do tremble when I think. Hey ho, would she were mine. Her cheeks are like the blushing cloud that beautifies Aurora's face, or like the silver crimson shroud that Phobos smiling looks does grace. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. Her lips are like two budded roses, in ranks of lilies neighbour nigh, within whose bounds she balm encloses, apt to entice a deity. Hey ho, would she were mine. Her neck like to a stately tower, where love himself imprisoned lies, to watch for glances every hour, for her divine and sacred eyes. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. Her paps are centres of delight, her breasts are orbs of heavenly frame, where nature moulds a dew of light, to feed perfection with the same. Hey ho, would she were mine. With orient pearl, with ruby red, with marble white, with sapphire blue, her body every way is fed, her softer touch and sweet in view. Yet softer touch and sweet in view. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. Nature herself her shape admires, the gods are wounded in her sight, and love forsakes his heavenly fires, and at her eyes his brand doth light. Hey ho, would she were mine. Then muse not, nymphs, though I bemoan the absence of fair Rosaline, since for a fair there's a fairer none, nor for her virtue so divine. Hey ho, fair Rosaline. Hey ho, my heart, would God that she were mine. I must admit, I think I like this one more than I usually would, given how simple the meaning seems to be. It really is just another poem praising the beauty of a woman, and there's plenty of that, as we've seen already. It's slightly interesting that, of course, it seems to be unrequited love, but again, that's far from novel. Fairly certain we've seen that already in the collection so far, which means that they were drawing upon that concept long before. But we've certainly read a lot of that in later poetry when we were going through the anthology, the 100 Best English Poems. But I have to say, there is good craftsmanship here, and there is some fantastic imagery and ideas as well. The meaning itself may not be that novel, but it has been expertly put. So now we move on to a poem by George Peele. So, who is George Peele? George Peele, baptised the 25th of July 1556 and buried the 9th of November 1596. Oh goodness, he only made it to 40. Was an English translator, poet and dramatist who is most noted for his supposed, but not universally accepted, collaboration with William Shakespeare on the play Titus Andronicus. Many anonymous Elizabethan plays have been attributed to him, but his reputation rests mainly on Edward I, The Old Wives' Tale, The Battle of Alcazar, The Arraignment of Paris, and David and Bathsheba. The Troublesome Reign of John, King of England, the immediate source for Shakespeare's King John, has been published under his name. Oh goodness. There's quite a long biographical section. Well, we may as well read through it. You never know what pearls of wisdom may be contained within. Peele was christened on the 25th of July 1556 at St James Garlick Hythe in the City of London. His father, James Peele, died the 30th of December 1585, who appears to belong to a Devonshire family, was a clerk of Christ's Hospital, a school which was then situated in central London, and wrote 2 treatises on bookkeeping. The Manner and For Me, How to Keep a Perfect Reckoning, and The Pathways to Perfectness. The latter depicts James Peele in a woodcut on the title page. No contemporary likeness of George is known, although he was said to be short-legged, dark-complected, red-haired and squinting, though not necessarily from reliable sources. George's mother Anne died on the 1st of July 1580, and his father married Christian Widers, died 1597 in St Christopher's, Les Stocks, on the 3rd of November 1580. She became a nurse on the hospital payroll, where she remained 5 years after James Peele's death, when she married Ralph Boswell. His siblings included Anne, died the 10th of January 1568 to 9, Isabel, Judith, died the 16th of April 1582, and James, born the 3rd of January 1563 to 4. And married John Alford on the 14th of May 1565 and had one son, Robert. 9th of October 1567 to around the 12th of March 1654 to 5. Judith married John Jackman on the 19th of June 1575, and had 3 children. Susan, born the 3rd of June 1576, William the 30th of April 1577 to the 1st of July 1577. Oh dear. So he only survived about 2 months, and Sarah died the 25th of May 1578. On the 5th of February 1568-9, Isabel married Matthew Shakespeare, with whom she had 8 children. Many scholars believe that this was a cousin of William Shakespeare, but this has not been verified. James Peele also wrote The Ironmonger's Pageant of 1566 and 1569, which may have led to George's writing of 2 Lord Mayor pageants. Of 2 Lord Mayor's pageants. Goodness me. George Peele was educated at Christ's Hospital and entered Broadgates Hall, Oxford in 1571. In 1574 he removed to Christchurch, taking his BA degree in 1577 and proceeding MA in 1579. In that year, the governors of Christ's Hospital requested their clerk to discharge his house of his son, George Peele. He went up to London about 1580, the year he married his first wife, 16-year-old heiress Anne Cook, the only child of Hugh Christian, who was also known by the surnames Cook, Alator, Elector, and Nelator. His brother Daniel used Alator. Christian had died a few months before the marriage, and lawsuits over his estate were not settled for years, draining the inheritance. Oh dear. That gives some very Jarndyce versus Jarndyce vibes, doesn't it? In 1583, when Albertus Alasko, a Polish nobleman, was entertained at Christchurch, Peele was entrusted with the arrangement of 2 Latin plays by William Geiger, 1580-1619, presented on the occasion. He was also complimented by Geiger for an English verse translation of one of the Iphigenies of Euripides. In 1585 he was employed to write the device of pageant Born Before Woolston-Dixie, and in 1591 he devised the pageant in the honour of another Lord Mayor, Sir William Webb. This was the Descensus Astraiae, printed in the Harleian Miscellanea, 1808, in which Elizabeth is honoured as Astrea. In which Queen Elizabeth is honoured as Astrea. Robert Greene, at the end of his pamphlet, Greene's Groat's Worth of Wit, exhorts Peele to repentance, saying that Peele, like Greene himself, has been driven to extreme shifts for a living. Anecdotes of his reckless life were emphasised by the use of his name in connection with the apocryphal Merry Conceited Jests of George Peele. Merry Conceited Jests of George Peele, printed in 1607. Many of the stories had circulated before in other jest books. What is a jest book? Jest books are a collection of jokes and humorous anecdotes in book form, a literary genre which reached its greatest importance in the early modern period. Unattached to Peele's name, but there are personal touches that may be biographical. The book provided source material for the play The Puritan, one of the works of Shakespeare Apocrypha. The Shakespeare Apocrypha. The Shakespeare Apocrypha is a group of plays and poems that have sometimes been attributed to William Shakespeare, but whose attribution is questionable for various reasons. This is largely dismissed by Peele biographer David H. Horn. In the minds of at least some of those who have voiced such views, a process of circular reasoning must have unconsciously taken place. Merer's statement that Peele died by the pox means that Peele was dissipated, since the hero of the jest is dissipated. His acquaintanceship with Greene, who was dissipated, bears this out. Therefore, because he was acquainted with Greene and died of pox, the evidence of the jest to the effect that he was dissipated may be accepted as authentic. What do I mean by dissipated? To drive away, disperse, to use or waste up, squander, to vanish by dispersion, to cause energy to be lost through its conversion to heat, to be dissolute in conduct. Yeah, I'm not sure I fully follow this, but I don't think it's going to be particularly relevant to our reading of his poetry. I think it's just stating that the evidence for certain anecdotes about George Peele aren't very convincing, and that they are making deductions purely based on certain coincidences and associations, rather than hard evidence. He notes that the jest books on famous subjects were common, including William Shakespeare, Ben Jonson, Colley Cibber, Thomas Killigrew, James Kyn, David Garrick, Lawrence Sterne, William Congreve, Lord Sandwich, Lord Chesterfield, Samuel Johnson, Falstaff, Tristram Shandy, and Polly Peachum. He shows that most were derived from merry tales and quick answers, while the few jests unique to the volume follow similar patterns to traditional jests, with merely the details changed. Peele was a product of the Middle London, Horne writes, but his recurrent courtly themes of war and pastoralism show that in his work he aspired to the highest. It is ironical that his present reputation should have dropped him to the lowest. But why is it that although Ben Jonson killed a man and was imprisoned many times, his reputation does not seem to have suffered? Let us not single out Peele for opprobrium unless we are prepared to maintain that all of Green's acquaintances and men like Jonson were immersed in sin. Horne then attacks W.M. Krusennak's view that David and Besab is the product of a crapulous morality dating from the last years of the poet's dissolute life, as having questionable basis. Peele was in most respects like his fellow Elizabethans, morally neither better or worse, aesthetically more perceptive, in technical skill equal to his fellow poets, in the sweetness of his piping superior to all but Marlowe, Spenser, and Shakespeare. There were two words I wanted to look up. Crapulous and... oh, ironical. Because ironical sounds like it's a... it's just a corrupted form of ironic, but presumably not. Characterized by or constituting any kind of irony, given to the use of irony, sarcastic, feigning ignorance, simulating lack of instruction or knowledge, exhibiting Socratic irony. Synonyms: ironic. From Latin crapulosus, drunken. Characterized by excessive eating or drinking. Suffering physically from the consequences of excessive eating or drinking. Surcharged with liquor, sick from excessive indulgence in drinking or eating. Peele may have married a second time to Mary Gates or Yates. It is not possible to state this definitively that the George Peele who married Mary Gates is a dramatist, as another George Peele, a boxmaker who died in 1604, was living in London at the time. There is not enough information in the record to determine for certain to which George Peele she was actually married. Frank S. Hook, who edited a 1961 edition of Edward I, suggests that David H. Horn's speculation in the first volume of the same edition is correct in believing this is the same George Peele based on a fictitious incident in the play's first scene. Peele may be more interested in what should be done than in what actually has been done. The emphasis on generosity to soldiers and veterans is in ironic contrast to the way the fighting forces in the Netherlands were actually treated. Leicester's report, summarised in the Calendar of State Papers, Foreign, show amply the suffering of soldiers. They were not paid on time, and their living conditions were deplorable. Likewise, the Acts of Privy Council for the period after 1590, when soldiers began returning from Willoughby's expedition to France, demonstrate the care of wounded veterans was becoming an increasingly embarrassing problem for Elizabeth's government. Read in light of these contemporary documents, this scene takes on a bitterly ironic note. In the scene, Edward I establishes a college for wounded soldiers, something he did not do in real life, nor was this something Elizabeth did, although in 1587 the Earl of Leicester had done so in Elizabeth's name at the Galtheus. While it must be said that Hook and Horn are writing for the same edition with Charles Tyler Prouty as general editor, this ties directly with Horn's supposition that this is the same George Peele, for the George Peele who married Mary Gates was the widow of the former master gunner of Burgeth op Zoom, Lawrence Gates, and Mary and George Peele entered a lengthy legal battle to collect Mary's war widow salary. One wonders why Peele would have added such a fictitious moment to Edward I were he not the George Peele trying to collect these funds. Well, not necessarily. That's reasoning backwards a bit, isn't it? If they knew that he was the George Peele collecting the funds, then that would explain where he got the inspiration for the scene from. But it doesn't follow that there would have been no reason for him to add the scene were he not the same individual. This involved a 3-year litigation against Thomas Gerlin, who was a buyer of soldiers' uncollected wages. A buyer of soldiers' uncollected wages? Is that like buying a debt in reverse? Who countersued Mary, oh I see, on allegations that she had forged Lawrence Gates's will. Oh, I understand. So, a soldier is owed money, and apparently this happened a lot, so they go to someone and say, right, I'm owed, say, £2. If you give me £1.50, you can have the £2 wage that I'm owed. The soldier then gets money to spend immediately, and the person they're selling it to gets the profit if it ever pays out. The record does not show whether Gerlin, who stalled payment, ever actually paid what he owed to the Peels, despite Peel obtaining a verdict against him. Horn speculates that evidence of Peel's sickness in a letter to Lord Burleigh indicates that he was probably unable to work and thus pay legal fees. Horn also speculates that Peel himself may have been a soldier. Well, if he was also a soldier, then that would completely independently explain why that scene could have been the inspiration for that scene. Peel died of the pox, according to Francis Mears, and was buried on the 9th of November 1596 in St James's Church, Clerkenwell. One of the 8 boarding houses at the modern Horsham campus of Christ Hospital is now named Peel after George Peel, as a commemoration to the work of the Peel family with the ancient foundation of the Christ Hospital School. Okay, so aside from the reference to soldiering, and, well, the possible link to soldiering, I'm dubious as to how useful that particular biography will be, but nevertheless. So, George Peel, fair and fair. I wonder if I should be reading out the names. I suppose I will. Fair and fair. Einon. Fair and fair, and twice so fair as any may be, the fairest shepherd on our green, a love for any lady. Paris. Fair and twice so fair as any may be, thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. I none. My love is fair, my love is gay, and fresh has been the flowers in May, and of my love my rondelay, my merry, merry, merry rondelay. Concludes with Cupid's curse. They that do change old love for new, pray God say change for worse. Ambo simul. They that do change old love for new, pray God say change for worse. Fair and fair, etc. Paris, fair and fair, etc. Thy love is fair, etc. I none. My love can pipe, my love can sing, my love can many a pretty thing, and of his lovely praises sing. My merry, merry, merry rondelays are meant to Cupid's curse. They that do change, etc. Paris, they that do change, etc. Ambo, fair and fair, etc. Okay, I don't think I'm actually supposed to read out etc. I think I'm supposed to repeat the previous verse by that speaker that began the immediately preceding verse from that speaker that began with the given words. So I'll be looking for the previous instance of I none that begins fair and fair. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Yes. So a rondelay, I believe, is one of the forms of poetry that repeats itself a lot, although following specific rules. I think, although I'd have to double check this, it's one of the more nebulous forms that, you know, gets used in multiple different ways under the same name. Anyway, let me give that one more reading. Sorry, I just got distracted. I was checking the structure. I see lines with 7 and 8 syllables. So I assume it's a form of tetrameter. Probably iambic tetrameter. But then again, fair and twice so fair is clearly trochaic. As fair as any may be, I suspect is iambic. My merry, merry, merry rondelay. That's iambic. But it's not going to be fair and fair. It's bound to be fair and fair. So I suspect that the structure is actually quite irregular, besides the fact that it repeats itself so much. Anyway, I'll give this one more reading and I'll try to do it properly this time. No idea if that's actually pronounced I none, mind you. Could be I nonne, don't know. I none, sorry. Fair and fair, I none. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. The fairest shepherd on our green, a love for any lady. Paris. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. Unknown. My love is fair, my love is gay, as fresh has been the flowers in May, and of my love my rondelay, my merry, merry rondelay. Concludes with Cupid's curse. They that do change old love for new, pray God say change for worse. Ambo simul. They that do change old love for new, pray gods that they change for worse. Fair, and twice so fair as may be, the fairest shepherd on our green, a love for any lady. Fair, and twice so fair as any may be, thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. My love can pipe, my love can sing, my love can many a pretty thing. Oh, sorry, I skipped a bit. Thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. My love can pipe, my love can sing, my love can many a pretty thing, and of his lovely praises ring my merry, merry, merry roundelay. Amen to Cupid's curse. They that do change old love for new, pray gods they change for worse. They that do change old love for new, pray gods they change for worse. Fair, and twice so fair as any may be. Yeah, right at the end I noticed that there was no they that do change line that corresponded to I known or I none or I none. It probably is I non, isn't it? It's probably I non. Paris and Ambo Simule. Could be wrong. Anyway, that they that do change doesn't correspond to any line that Einon had spoken up to that point. And then again with Ambo and Fair. So perhaps there is actually a overarching structure here that I've missed. Fair and fair. Thy love is fair for thee alone. Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to figure out, for example, where it has Ambo Simule saying fair and fair, etc. Is that the first one? Sorry, the first one here? Or the first one here? Oh, it's the same if you only read 2 lines. So presumably I wasn't supposed to go on to say the fairest shepherd on our green, a love for any lady. Hang on. 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, are these 14ers that have been split in 2? I wonder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for other. 13, 14, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. No, it doesn't quite work, does it? There does seem to be a certain irregularity to the lines that I haven't quite gotten to the bottom of. Right, but I should assume where it says etc, it's only expecting me to repeat It's only expecting me to read out 2 lines, not 4. It's not the entire dialogue that was associated with the person that last spoke that. So let's try that. Once more. Fair and fair. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. The fairest shepherd on our green, a love for any lady. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. My love is fair, my love is gay, and as fresh as been the flowers in May. And of my love, my rondelay, my merry, merry, merry rondelay, concludes with Cupid's curse. They that do change old love for new, pray God they change for worse. They that do change old love for new, pray God they change for worse. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Thy love is fair for thee alone, and for no other lady. My love can pipe, my love can sing, my love can many a pretty thing, and of his lovely praises ring, my merry, merry, merry rondelay. Amen to Cupid's curse. They that do change old love for new, pray they change for worse. Oh, pray God they change for worse. They that do change old love for new, pray God they change for worse. Fair and twice so fair as any may be. Goodness. That was a tricky one to read out. Anyway, I think we'll conclude the poetry for this week here. And we'll move on to the riddles. So, last week I think we finished on riddle 132, which is as follows. Far in the east, where morals mix with sport, and wisdom is the pleasantry of court, instruction e'en to kings I can dispense, reform with guile, correct without offence. But here like harlequin, in antique guise, my talent's not to teach, but to surprise, sportive but fruitless, witty though not wise, in days when not one ray of wit did shine, I live with the dark schoolmen and divine, and now with sage astrologers I dwell, and truth as intricate as theirs can tell. But where I will, I court the sable shade, a foe to lie and skulk in masquerade, as Spanish dames wear the transparent veil, to invite the eye and show what they conceal. So I the affected modest air am taught, high to be seen, and fly but to be caught. Yet still I shall elude your pains and cost. The moment you have seized me, I am lost. Witlings pretend I'm of the female sex, born to tease, to puzzle and perplex. But ladies say, who best my nature scan, I'm brother to that dark dissembler man. With borrowed features, act a doubtful part, profound, mysterious, subtle as his heart, but not like that vain fugitive I range. Fix me but once, and I can never change. Till then I rove, and every form collect, but in disjointed limbs each form reflect. Fair ones, your wit to the cylindric glass, collect the scattered rays and show my face, or touch me gently with ethereal spear, in me the airy spectre will appear, the vainest unsubstantial thing e'er made, a phantom ghost, the shadow of a shade. Now I believe the solution to that was indeed an enigma, or riddle itself. Oh, nearly went too far. In fact, I did momentarily. Enigmas, yes. Right, so we move on to the first new riddle of tonight. 133. 'Tis owned few riddles justly claim esteem, but such as equally shun each extreme, and it fits subject should be fixed upon. For there may be improper ones you'll own. I've got a feeling we did have done this one before, so perhaps this was the last one we finished on. Then I'm as fit as theme as can be chose, darkness and daylight equally my foes. Twixt each wide extreme I keep the middle, and this the very emblem of a riddle, a mere nonentity when darkened most, and if too much enlightened, quickly lost. Short on my visits in the torrid zone, in northern climates I am better known. The Gothic bats and sage Athenian owls I please as well as those sharp-sighted fowls that hail my first appearance, not my stay. Still better pleased when I'm gone quite away. Oft when in me the virgin blush appears, 'tis deemed a frown, and sure presage of tears. And yet the blush, when next I'm seen again, gives hope and comfort to the anxious swain. But most I cheer, when venerably grey, and just expiring, on my brightest charms display. I've got a feeling that the solution to that one was Twilight, even though it seemed a bit too obvious and simplistic. Yep, Twilight. Okay, so I suppose the first new riddle is 134. Ladies, 'tis no hard task my name explore. When known, if wise, never let me cloud your door. Caution your husbands and each hopeful scion to shun me as they would a wolf or lion. For I from hell deputed first began the wrath of God and misery of man. Attentive read, weigh well the important tale, and first, ye fair, take notice I'm a male, descended from an ancient worthy race, whom I each day degenerate wretch disgrace. I jealously foment, distribute fears, and catch the unwary tradesman by the ears. First touch his coal, then o'er him cast a mist, and lead the passive cullies where I list. In foreign language I began to cheat, to cover artifice and screen deceit. But now familiar grown the great among, I traffic boldly in the vulgar tongue. To vend my wares around the country stroll, ruin one part and prejudice the whole. The racking landlord takes me for his friend, though I never fail to bite him in the end. The tenant too treats me with usage civil, though in his heart he hates me as the devil. Sometimes the clergy, on a sly pretence, I'm the churches and their best defence. When passion prompts or fancy moves them to it, will dine with me to purchase a new suit. But longer why should I perplex your head to find me out, if not enough is said. As thieves assume two names, I wear two faces. Am a grammarian too, well versed in cases. I assume where it says well versed in cases, it's referring to the grammatical concept of case, which would have been particularly which features heavily in Latin, I believe. And of course, the English grammar system was built based on the models for English grammar were built heavily on the Latin models for grammar. So the names for things and how things are assumed to be structured. My point being that that's the connection between grammarian and cases, I would suggest, and something they would have been acutely aware of back then. Perhaps less so now. Right, what do they mean by a coal? Spelt in this way. C-O-L-E. cabbage. A stack or stook of hay. First touch his coal, then o'er him cast a mist, and leave the passive colours where I list. Alright, what do they mean by colours? And I'm gonna check my physical dictionary for coal to see if it's more helpful. Okay, a person who is easily tricked or imposed on, a dupe or a gullible person. Okay, so that is what it would mean by colours, I would suggest. Coal, now rare, excluding in combination. Kinds of cabbage, etc. as rape, sea kale, coal seed, plant from which colza oil is got. Oh, it's in coleslaw. I didn't make that connection myself. That's a good point. And catch the unwary tradesman by the ears, first touch his coal, then o'er him cast a mist, and leave the passive colours where I list. I think coal must be cabbage, and it's just some elaborate ritual for casting a spell that's being described. In foreign language I began to cheat, to cover artifice and screen deceit. Why would you use foreign language? To make something seem... Well, it could be to avoid effective communication without saying anything which someone else could show to be wrong. So in other words, to cheat or deceive, potentially. But now familiar grown the great among, I traffic boldly in the vulgar tongue. To vend my wares around the country stroll, ruin one part and prejudice the whole. The racking landlord takes me for his friend, though I never fail to bite him in the end. I do wonder if the solution could be just a lie. The tenant who treats me with usage civil, though in his heart he hates me as the devil. Sometimes the clergy, on a sly pretence, that I'm the church's and their best friend, and their best defence, when passion prompts or fancy moves them to it, will dine of me to purchase a new suit. As thieves assume two names, I wear two faces. I'm a grammarian too, well versed in cases. Could it be something more specific than that? Something like a double negative? Something... a specific technique? Although if that were the case... or a circular argument. If that were the case, it's interesting that they say that in foreign language I began to cheat to cover artifice and screen deceit. Because that would suggest some interesting history that I'm certainly not aware of. So, what could it be? Could be a fallacy in general. Of course, it could be something like hypocrisy. A pretense. A false pretense. Oh, that's my best guess. A false pretense. I feel like the line that talks about I wear two faces is probably a very specific clue that I'm not following. Of course, if you have any guesses, please leave them in chat. Petty-fogging attorney. I wasn't expecting that. I'm going to start with my physical dictionary. Does that have the word petty-fogging in it? I wonder if that describes someone that deliberately... a self-serving lawyer that tries to drag out cases for their benefit or something like that. Nope, no pettifogging in this dictionary. Present participle of pettifog, of course. Alternate form of pettifog. Oh, okay. I didn't check for that in my physical dictionary, because that's not the spelling they have there. Pettifog. Practice legal chicanery. Quibble, wrangle about petty points. Pettifogger, inferior legal practitioner. Rascally attorney. Petty practitioner in any department. Hence pettifoggery. Oh. Quibble over trivial matters, nitpick. Don't pettifog or you will soon grow weary. To do a petty business as a lawyer or carry out law business in a petty or tricky way. Oh, I just accidentally saw some of the later ones. Later solutions. Oh, let's just hope I didn't see the solution to the next riddle. What are we up to? Somewhere around here, I think. Oh, so well versed in cases actually did mean legal cases. So everything I said before about cases and grammar, not applicable in this case. Oh, but I'm a grammarian too. Again, that makes sense about in the context of a quibbling lawyer. Okay. 135. I am a bitter but a wholesome good, were but many virtues better understood. For many things impossible to thought have been by me to full perfection brought. The daring of the soul proceeds from me, with prudence, diligence, activity. Sharpness of wit and fortitude I give, and teach the patient man to better live. When men want strange to me, my virtues prove. Themselves I make them know, and him above. The flatterer from the friend I teach to know. In me a fair possession lies, but oh, the childishness of men all me refuse. Because I'm plain, and gaudy trifles choose. I'm made the scorn of every foppish fool. Insulted, hated, turned to ridicule. I don't think I do know the solution to that. What was foppish? Is that someone that's overly, what's the word? Overly concerned with extravagant but unimportant things. Like a fop, a man overly concerned with appearance, vain and showy. I was close. So, I am a bitter but a wholesome good, were but my virtues better understood. For many things impossible to thought have been by me to full perfection brought. The daring of the soul proceeds from me, with prudence, diligence, activity. Sharpness of wit and fortitude I give, and teach the patient man to better live. When men, once strange to me, my virtues prove, themselves I make them know, and him above. The flatterer from the friend I teach to know. In me a fair possession lies, but oh, the childishness of men all me refuse, because I'm plain, and gaudy trifles choose. I made the scorn of every foppish fool, insulted, hated, turned to ridicule. I don't know. Oh, themselves I make them know, and him above. I think him above is a reference to God. The only question then is why isn't the H in him capitalized? The flatterer from the friend I teach to know is an interesting one. So it gives people wisdom to... It gives them insight into the human condition, presumably. Could it be some form of hardship or poverty? I am a bitter but a wholesome good. Were but my virtues better understood, for many things impossible to thought have been by me to full perfection brought. The daring of the soul proceeds from me, with prudence, diligence, activity. Sharpness of wit and fortitude I give, and teach a patient man to better live. Adversity, perhaps. When men want strange day my virtues prove, themselves I make them know, and him above. The flatterer from the friend I teach to know. In me a fair possession lies, but oh, the childishness of men all me refuse, because I'm plain, and gaudy trifles choose. I made the scorn of every foppish fool, insulted, hated, turned to ridicule. Adversity. I bet that's it. So what were we on? Sorry, what were we on? 135, I think. Poverty. I was close. That was in fact one of the things that I previously guessed. Oh well, I think we'll stop there for tonight. So thank you for coming everyone, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I'll be streaming again on Friday, in which I'll be doing more Endless Space 2. I'll also be streaming on Saturday and Monday, which will also be a video game stream. If I've completed Endless Space 2 by then I'll be moving on to a different game. If I haven't, then it'll be more of that. Then we're back around to Wednesday again, which is poetry and riddles. So, once again, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and good night.